Okay, everybody, I'm back. Basically going to give you a very quick video on making sure that Google Earth is set up correctly, and just some basic things to operate it. Let me make sure the window is showing here in the recordings area. You may recall a couple weeks ago when I played with Google Earth in 1100, ran into some issues as far as trying to get the elevation number to actually show what's going on here. And you'll notice in this case it's actually working. And there's a couple of things you'll need to do to make sure that that's the case. One, if we come here to the Tools selection of the menu bar, click that, the drop-down menu opens, come down to Options, open up that box. As we scroll into this, if we click over to 3D view, okay, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure that there is some sort of vertical exaggeration set. If that's set to 0, it won't work. It won't show you the elevation. The second thing you'll want to make sure is that's done here is that the show elevation units are set to meters and kilometers, since that's what we're recording in this case. So two things under the options. Again, make sure that it has a vertical exaggeration of 0.5 or higher, up to 3, and that the elevation shows as meters and kilometers. The way in which I ran into issues was that, because I did fool around with that and made sure that was all set, because I didn't realize or had forgotten that there's this other thing down here in the layers property down at the very bottom, terrain, and that wasn't checked. Okay, and if you uncheck that, the elevation goes away. Recheck that, and here we go. The elevation's back again. So, cool. You need to make sure that both of those things are in place. Excuse me. The other thing you'll notice that in this case, to get to this area, which happens to be the vicinity of Sierra Grande and Capulene volcano, both located, obviously, in, or at least in the same general area, actually in the Raton volcanic field of northeastern New Mexico. To get to this area, I just entered coordinates as 36.7 degrees north latitude, 103.88 degrees west longitude. But you'll also notice down here that I have another set in here for another volcano. That one actually happens to be Shasta, where I just went in and used 41.31, and where it's positive, it tells Google it's north, and negative 122.31 longitude, which again, because it's negative, tell Google it's west longitude. Okay, so you can enter those things either way in order to get into these locations and enter your data when you're scrolling from point to point as you're doing this exercise. Okay, to get a sense of what the elevation's doing, normally I'd have this thing open to full screen, but I can't do that when I'm recording. I am going to try to zoom in here as much as I can on Sierra Grande and still have what we need showing in order to be able to do what we have to do. Okay, so this basically shows the vicinity of the volcano. So other things I want to point out quickly. Looking at this volcanic system, we have the peak up here. If you watch the elevation, you're going to see it up around 2,600 meters. If I go down to the edge, of course, we're dropping down below 2,100 meters, all the way, well, more or less, around the base of the volcano. Looking at this, though, here's the crest, here's the peak, and as we're coming down off the volcano, you'll notice that any place where water has drained and left all these little swales or intermediate stream beds, there's a radial pattern that's associated with those. But when we get out to the edge of this thing, really where the slope is changing drastically, that radial pattern dries off. That's probably one of the key things you're going to want to use when you're trying to establish where the edges of these things are. Because you're going to need a peak elevation, the max elevation, the base elevation down here below the, or I just showed you is where the radial drainage pattern dies out. The distance between those points, once you've established that, and then the base diameter of the volcano, which is going from low point on one side of the volcano diagonally over to the low point on the other side of the volcano. But I'll show you the formalities of how to do that, but these are some of the things you're going to want to be making note of. And again, scrolling around the upper part here, okay, now we're going to look for the high point, and I know, and when I'm zoomed out this far, it's a little tough to get it. I know it's over 2650 in this case, but if you were zoomed in closer, you'll be able to find that point more precisely. And then when you get down here to the base below the radial place, just be consistent when you're doing this as far as the approach. You know, if you're a few meters, even a 10 or so, 20 meters off in either side, it's not going to make that great a difference on the slope calculation given the magnitudes of these numbers, but you know, be consistent so that your approach is consistent. That's the key point. Okay, we'll get into the formalities of exactly how to go in and do this on a couple of these volcanoes. So I'm just going to go in and take measurements and enter them into the spreadsheet, and we'll move on from there in the next video. This again is the basics and things you want to worry about in using Google Earth. Be back again in a moment.